Last week on Battlefield 1 Weapon History, we discussed the Automatico, a weapon that divides opinion within the game still to this day. This week, however, we're switching gears away from the rapid-fire assault class to a weapon that, with its iconic design, is known likely just as much in a certain space-themed movie franchise as it is for being part of World War I. It's time to take a look at the C96 Mauser. And before we get into the history of the actual weapon, let's take a look at this thing in Battlefield 1. Now, as I mentioned, the standard variant of the pistol comes to the medic class as a sidearm specifically chosen to complement the primary weapons in that class. And, if you can believe it, 4 other variants of it exist in the game as well. We have the C96 Carbine, that's available to the tanker and the pilot. You've probably seen that in multiplayer quite a few times. Then, we have the C96 Silencer, a single-player only weapon which can be picked up from weapon crates around certain levels. We have the C96 Export, which is a super rare developer-only weapon, which can be used by DICE employees in multiplayer. And finally, we have the C96 Carbine Scoped, another extremely rare variant which can only be used in the single player. I kinda wish that DICE would add this one to the multiplayer as well. The standard C96 slots into one of the 3 available places within the medic class as an exclusive medic-only weapon. You'll notice that all 4 of the main classes have these exclusive sidearms that can only be used within that class. Now, I can't find a specific reason as to why that might be, but upon looking at the weapons and comparing them, it might have been to separate out those similar performing sidearms so that you have a proper choice, rather than having, I don't know, 3 revolvers that all kind of do the same thing sitting in a list of weapons that you can pick from. That's an issue that Battlefield 4 had, where there were so many weapons to choose from that most of them ended up being very similar to the one next to it. The C96 costs 150 war bonds to acquire within the medic class, and it features a 10-round internal magazine that can be loaded via stripper clips or individual rounds being placed through that small receiver on top of the barrel. That gives the weapon the unusual ability for a sidearm to top off a half-spent magazine midway through firing. This can be seen as kind of a blessing or a hindrance, depending on how you look at it, because to activate the quicker reload, you need to use all the bullets in the magazine. 2.7 seconds for a full reload, but if you want to top off the magazine, it's a 1.3 second start, and then an additional 0.25 seconds every bullet that you put back in, up to the maximum of 10. So depending on your situation, you'll need to think about which of the 2 options you want to go for. Doing a max damage of 28 in close quarters, the C96 can take players down fairly quickly, but as with most other lighter sidearms in Battlefield 1, the further out the target is, the more you're going to struggle to take them down. The damage value just drops off very, very quickly. Now, the weapon competes directly with the Repetier pistol from the support class, but it features that mid-magazine reload where the Repetier doesn't. Now, just very quickly, the export version, the developer-only weapon in Battlefield 1, does actually differ from the standard C96 that us mere consumers are given. The export, although looking identical to the standard variant, does have a higher damage value, but it suffers from a faster damage drop-off and overall offers lower control. Essentially, you're not missing out on much other than the export being an all-kit sidearm, rather than being restricted to the medic class. Lucky developers. But is the Mauser C96 in Battlefield 1 anywhere near close to its real-life counterpart? Let's find out. The Mauser C96 pistol is one of the most recognisable weapons in the world. Even today, over a century since it was prototyped and put into production. Its iconic design didn't change all that much through its life whilst being produced, and it retained all of those original features that made it so striking. First of all, the box magazine integrated into the weapon housing in front of the trigger. That could be fed via a stripper clip, a single round reload system, or on later models, a bottom fed cartridge. Then we have that really odd wooden shoulder stock that doubled as a carrying case for the pistol itself. This gave the weapon more stability, akin to what a user might expect from a shorter barreled rifle. Then we have the long barrel of the weapon jutting out beyond the box magazine, and that gave the weapon much better long-range accuracy than its competitors. And lastly, the uniquely designed wooden grip, shaped like a broom handle. The British adopted the name broom handle for the C96 for that very reason. Now, the weapon entered service with the German forces in 1895, so well before World War I, but for its time, the weapon was actually fairly advanced. The weapon used a new cartridge designed by Mauser, the 7.63 by 25mm, and it was considered the highest velocity pistol cartridge that was commercially available. And that record held true until the mid-1930s, when the American firearms company, Smith & Wesson, produced the .357 Magnum cartridge. This high-velocity round, the Mauser round, in addition to a long barrel design, gave the pistol really good ranged accuracy, and it allowed for far greater bullet penetration. Once your shots landed on a target, they were likely to do some damage. Over the years it was in production, there were lots and lots and lots of different variants of the C96 Mauser. It was a very popular pistol. It was chambered for multiple different cartridges and featured slightly tweaked visible appearances to distinguish them from one another. The Italian Navy ordered several thousand units in the late 1890s, the Turkish Army ordered around 1,000 of them in 1897, and they had the Islamic calendar year engraved onto them, and even the Persian government ordered some 10,000 of them and had their lion and sun insignia milled into the metal panel on the left side of the receiver. But the variant that I really want to touch on is the Red 9. This actually had a fair bit of significance because the Imperial German Army, who ordered over 150,000 C96 pistols, also decided to have the weapon rechambered for the 9mm Parabellum, a cartridge that was in fairly decent supply due to its use in the Luger pistol. The Red 9 that's engraved into these C96s was to help the soldiers remember to load 9mm Parabellum rounds into it, rather than the standard 7.63mm Mauser ammo. However, the Red 9 engraving wasn't done by Mauser themselves in the factory, it was done by German soldiers who worked as armourers, and this meant that not all of the 9mm C96s actually got the branding, that big Red 9 on the handle, that they were designated to have. After World War I, the C96 lived on in many forms, with more and more variants being made for different markets, and it even inspired plenty of copycat designs. This Chinese model, called the Shanzi Type 17 I think, replaced the Mauser cartridge and rechambered the weapon to use 45 ACP rounds. Extremely powerful rounds, I might add. Another Chinese copy, which is harder to make out in the picture, but this is called the Hanyang C96, and it was considered to be a bit nicer than the Shanzi Type 17, but this one stuck with the Mauser cartridge. The Astra Model 900 was another copy, this time made in Spain, and was extremely similar to the original C96 on the outside, but it used non-interlocking parts on the inside. And finally, we have this beauty. This is called the Federal Ordnance M714 Broom Handle Carbine, and it's an American creation which mimicked previous official variants made by Mauser, this one in particular, the Trench Carbine. It features a detachable stock and a detachable box magazine, things that weren't on the original C96 back in the 1890s. So it's clear then that the popularity of the C96 carried it far and wide across the globe. But did DICE do a good job of fitting it into Battlefield 1? In my opinion, I think they did a very good job. I'd love to see them expand on the finishes for the weapon, however, perhaps introducing some iconic skins, such as the Red 9, to commemorate some of those changes and improvisations that the weapon saw throughout its life. Could be very similar to the 1911, and how that was treated with different variants like the Doughboy and the Hellfighter. But thanks very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of the C96 down below in the comment section, and let me know which weapon you'd like to see here on Battlefield 1 Weapon History next week. But until then, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.